What if the 1979 Iranian Revolution never happened? Right now, as bombs fall on Tehran and oil prices shatter records, there's a question almost nobody is asking, but everyone should be. What if none of this had to happen? What if one moment in 1979 had gone differently, and the revolution that created the Islamic Republic of Iran simply never occurred? The answer doesn't just change Iran. It changes everything. The entire map of the modern Middle East, the war on terror, the price you pay at the gas pump today, all of it traces back to one pivotal year. Here's something most people don't realize. Before 1979, Iran was one of the most modern, progressive nations in the Middle East. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Tehran looked more like Paris than anything you'd associate with today's Islamic Republic. Women attended universities without headscarves. Nightclubs thrived. Iran had the fastest growing economy in the developing world. The Shah's White Revolution had distributed land to millions of peasants, built hospitals and schools, and pushed literacy rates from 26 to over 50% in just 2 decades. But there was a dark side. The Shah's secret police, Savak, were brutal, torturing and killing political dissidents. Rapid modernization left rural communities behind. Wealth concentrated among the elite, while inflation crushed the middle class. Religious conservatives felt their culture was being erased. When Ayatollah Khamenei, exiled in Paris, began sending cassette tapes of fiery sermons into Iran, millions listened. By January 1979, the Shah fled. By February, Khomeini returned to Tehran and declared an Islamic Republic. Iran was transformed overnight. But what if the Shah had listened to the warning signs earlier? What if he'd reined in Savak, shared more wealth, and allowed a controlled democratic opening, a constitutional monarchy like Britain or Japan? It wasn't impossible. He'd considered reforms before. In our alternate timeline, let's say in 1975, the Shah takes a different path. He fires his hardline security chiefs, allows limited political parties, and invests oil revenues directly into middle-class housing and infrastructure. Khomeini's tapes still circulate, but they fall on less desperate ears. Without the revolution, the 1979 hostage crisis never happens. Those 52 American diplomats are never seized. This matters more than most people realize. The hostage crisis destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency and supercharged anti-Iranian sentiment in America for decades. Without it, the United States and Iran remain uneasy allies. American oil companies keep operating in Iran. There's no severing of diplomatic relations, no decades of sanctions, no axis of evil speech. The entire trajectory of U.S.-Iran relations stays on a completely different track. Here's where millions of lives are saved. Saddam Hussein invaded Iran in 1980 partly because Khomeini's revolutionary government was calling for Islamic uprisings across the region, including in Iraq. Without that provocation, the Iran-Iraq War likely never happens. That's a conflict that killed over 1 million people, wounded millions more, and used chemical weapons on civilian populations. 8 years of carnage erased. An entire generation of young Iranian and Iraqi men who were sent to die in trenches would instead grow up, build families, and contribute to their nations. The Islamic Republic created and funded Hezbollah in Lebanon in 1982. It became one of Iran's most powerful proxy forces, destabilizing Lebanon and threatening Israel for decades. Without the revolution, there's no ideological mandate to export Islamic revolution. Hezbollah is never formed. Hamas receives far less funding. The entire network of Iranian proxy militias across the Middle East, in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, simply doesn't exist. Lebanon might have recovered from its civil war decades earlier. Syria's civil war fueled partly by Iranian-backed forces, might have ended differently, or never escalated as it did. Iran sits on the world's fourth largest oil reserves and second largest natural gas reserves. Under decades of sanctions, that potential was strangled. In our alternate timeline, Iran develops its energy sector with Western technology and investment. Iranian oil flows freely onto global markets. This single change likely keeps oil prices 15 to 20% lower for the past 4 decades. The 1970s oil shocks still happen, but they're mitigated faster. OPEC has less leverage. The global economy grows faster. Energy-dependent developing nations in Africa and Asia industrialize sooner. Without international isolation, Iran has no incentive to pursue a covert nuclear weapons program. Instead of centrifuges hidden in mountain bunkers, Iran's scientific talent goes into civilian technology, medicine, and renewable energy. The Iranian diaspora, some of the most educated immigrants in American history, never has to flee. Millions of engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs stay in Iran, building one of the region's most advanced economies. Tehran becomes a tech hub, not a sanctions target. And this brings us to today. In our real timeline, bombs are falling on Tehran. American service members have died. Oil has shattered $100 a barrel. Millions of Iranians face an uncertain future under a regime that came to power 47 years ago. In our alternate timeline, none of this is happening. Iran is a flawed but functioning constitutional monarchy, an American ally, an oil exporter, a regional stabilizer. The current supreme leader's family never rises to power because there's no position of supreme leader to hold. Now, this alternate history isn't a fairy tale. The Shah's regime had real problems: corruption, inequality, political repression. A monarchy surviving into the 21st century would have faced enormous pressure to reform. There might have been a different kind of revolution, or a gradual transition to democracy like South Korea or Taiwan experienced. The point isn't that Iran without the revolution would be perfect. It's that the specific path that was taken, theocratic rule, international isolation, proxy wars, was not inevitable. It was the result of choices, missed opportunities, and a revolution that didn't have to end the way it did. 47 years after the revolution, Iran is at war again. The country that could have been one of the great powers of the 21st century has instead spent half a century under sanctions, isolation, and authoritarian rule. The Iranian people, one of the oldest, most cultured civilizations on earth, deserved better. And when the dust settles from the current conflict, the question won't be who won. It'll be the same question it's always been. What kind of Iran comes next? Because the future that was stolen in 1979 might still be possible, just 47 years late.